Family, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Hey family, we glad that you all could join us today for this very important topic. Family, we have gotten a lot of questions about this topic. When will you do a lesson on this? We've been getting this question for years. Sister Abby, yes, Sister Abby and I. And we said, you know what? Y'all put it on our hearts.
Yes.
Let's do some studying. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's put it together for our brothers and sisters, because this is a question that many people they don't know. Should I wear one? Should I not wear one? And I mean, when you see stuff on the internet, family, people are all over the place when it comes to the head covering. You'll see lessons where they'll give you 1,000 reasons to do it. You'll have 1,000 reasons not to do it. So we said, let us give our take on it. And I think that's what makes this lesson unique when you come here at the Way TV family. We're going to go to the scriptures and see what the scriptures say. Because, again, the doctrines are everywhere, family. You ask 10 people about head coverings, you're going to get 10 different answers.
Right.
You're going to get 10 different answers. Some people say Paul was addressing the women. He was addressing the men. I mean, it's all over the place, family. The doctrines are everywhere.
Right.
Everywhere, fam. But we're going to dive deep into this. Cover your head. That's the name of this lesson, family. Should women wear head coverings? Should men wear head coverings? Should men, Brother Rasha, you don't have why don't I have one? We're going to go to the scriptures, family. We are going to go to the scriptures. And like we say, family, a lot of times, and we've done a lot of study on this, and what I've seen too is a lot of people, they'll read a certain part. They'll take out one part, they'll make the whole doctrine around it. Take out certain sections, that's the whole doctrine. Well, we tell y'all, family, is to always read things in context. Not only that, try to put yourself in their shoes.
Right.
See what they were going through. What was the situation going on back then? Was this specifically for them? Or was this universal? Was this an eternal principle? Was this Yah trying to show something through what he was saying? Through the prophets, through the disciples, family, through the apostles.
Right.
That's how we have to look at it. And this one too, we used to get this a lot. And this is when we first started our ministry. Sister Abby and I would come on, we'd get questions. Why, sister, why you don't have a head covering on?
Right.
We used to get that all the time. And I think what helped with that too is when we did the Pagans Amongst Us video. That's a good one if you want to check something out. It put a lot of that stuff to rest. So we're going to address this one. I don't know if you wanted to add something.
Well, not really. You said people would ask why I didn't have a head covering. I even had a brother who was in one of the, what would we call it? One of the sects. And he just came out and he was like, "Sister, cover your head." With all kind of exclamation marks after it. And I was like, okay, wow.
Right.
Bless you, brother.
All right.
But today, you all gonna finally see our intake on it, because a lot of people was always wondering, what is our intake? How do we feel about head coverings? Because sometimes you may see Sister Abiyah, I'll have, my head covered, like the majority of my head covered. Sometimes I would have some of my locks out. And today, as you see, but today you guys are going to actually finally get to see how me and Brother Rasha feel about head coverings. Matter of fact, by using the word, let me say that.
Right. We're talking about this piece of fabric, family. It's a lot of doctrines, a lot of conversations that's had behind this piece of fabric, family. So we're gonna dive into it. What does this fabric mean? Head covering. What does it mean, family?
Right.
So let's dive into it. In the text, we're going to be talking about. You want to say something?
I was going to say that is the women version.
Right.
We didn't have a. We don't have one with us. One of the male. What would we call it? A turban.
Turban. Yeah. Right. You see them, they have
but I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I've seen some of the brothers have that on.
Right.
I never got a question. Nobody ever said to me, brother, why you don't have a turban on or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Why your head not covered, brother? I never got that one. Might get it today. So let's dive into let's talk about the text that we are reading from. This is where the doctrine comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 11, starting at verse 1, family. And this is Paul writing to the assembly in Corinth. You want to read that? Mm-hmm. And before we start, let's say this. When you know how in some Bibles, family, they have the little subheadings at the top of before the passage starts, before paragraphs start. And in this section, it says, Rose in Worship. That's the subtitle. Rose in Worship. So that's important. So 1 Corinthians chapter 11, starting at verse 1, family.
So 1 Corinthians, before we even start reading 1 Corinthians, here was a letter from Shaul.
Yep, Shaul. Right, to the assembly.
To the assembly. And remember, too, their assembly that they were talking about is when they were all gathering together in a physical place.
Right.
A physical place. So it says, be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Mashiach. Now I praise you, brethren, that you remember me in all things, and keep the ordinances as I delivered them to you. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Mashiach. I'm looking at your head.
Yeah.
And the head of every woman is the man.
I'm your head.
That's what it said.
Okay.
And the head of Messiah is Yah. Every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoreth his head. But every woman that prayeth or prophesied with her head uncovered, dishonoreth her head. For that is even all one, as if she were shaven. For if the woman be not covered, let her also be shorn. But if it be a shame for a woman to be shorn or shaven, let her be covered.
Yep. Shorn just mean a low cut, family.
And low cut
or shaving the bald head, right?
For a man indeed ought not to cover his head, for as much as he is the image of, the image and esteem of Yah. But the woman is the esteem of man. For the man is not of woman, but the woman of man. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. For this cause ought the woman to have power on her head because of the Malaks, the angels. Nevertheless, neither is the man without the woman, neither the woman without the man in the master. For as the woman is of the man, even so is the man also by the woman. But all things of Yah. Judge in yourselves, is it comely that a woman pray unto Yah uncovered? Don't not even nature itself teach you that? If a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him. But if a woman have long hair, it is an esteem to her. For her hair is giving her for a covering. But if any man seem to be contentious, we have no such custom, neither the assemblies of Elohim.
Now, family, I'll just be honest and upfront. That whole passage is confusing as all get out. Paul is talking about a whole lot. Paul talking about cutting hair. He talking about the angels.
He's talking about the order.
Talking yep, the head, Messiah, the man, the husband. I mean, he's all over the place. What is Paul saying, family? Is he talking about hair? Is he talking about a physical covering? Is he talking about the hair? What is it? So, family, first we want to say this. When reading these types of texts, we have to read things in context. Remember at the beginning what I said. The subtitle of the scripture said, roles in worship. So Paul is talking about while you are all in worship, do this. And remember Paul's letters. When Paul was writing to these different assemblies, he was telling them to do this. He was bringing order. They had chaos.
Right.
Remember, he was just starting all these assemblies across Rome, across that time, that land at that time. In all these different places. So, and we know he's addressing the assembly because when you read verse 17, right after 16, the last one that you just read, remember at the beginning, verse 1, he said, I praise you to do this because you're doing this. The next verse, in 17, he says, now in this that I declare unto you, I praise you not, that you come together not for the better, but for the worse. So Paul is writing them to say, you know what? Y'all got a lot of chaos going on. Y'all have chaos going on. We need to establish some order up in here. We need some order, family.
Oh, yes.
And let's look more into the context. Who was Paul writing to? Paul was an apostle to who?
The Gentiles.
Yep. Paul was the apostle to the Gentiles, right, family? That's 2 Timothy 1, verse 11. Let me pull that up right quick. 2 Timothy 1, verse 11, family.
Verse 11.
Paul was not talking to Israelites. Now, we did a whole lesson on this. Some people believe Israelites is the Gentiles and Israelites is everybody. Now, go back and watch that lesson. I think it's the Gentiles, the war.
We did a few about the Gentiles.
Yep, just look for the title, right, where we break down who's the
Gentile. We're talking about
Gentiles,
because we have a few.
Even the one, too, where we talked about spiritual. Now, yeah, that was
That
the
might
one. Spiritual Israel.
Okay.
Check that lesson out, family.
Okay. Or the war.
That one, too, the war, too, and the spiritual Israel. So, First 2 Timothy, verse 11, he said, to which I was appointed a preacher and apostle and a teacher of the Gentiles. So we saying that to say, family, Paul is dealing with a various group of people, a mixed group of people. He not just dealing with Israelites. He have to train them. You know what? This is what order looks like.
Right.
Israelites will already know this, a lot of these things. So he has to tell these new converts, these new people that's converting to the belief, that's converting into the walk. This is what order looks like. Y'all may not know when y'all was in paganism what y'all was doing.
Right.
Or what kind of order y'all had.
Right.
But we got order in these assemblies.
Absolutely. And if they were, I'm sure they were coming into the belief with the actual Israelites. You know, so when they were coming into it, I'm sure that there was some disagreements between the two. So it was chaos.
It was contentious. Yes.
So
absolutely.
Paul, but we know who he wrote his letters to. He just told us who he was speaking to.
Right. And he write them. We think about that too, family. When he's writing them, he's not just writing them, just to pass time. I don't have nothing to do. Let me just write them. He's writing them because there's problems.
Right.
There's issues going on.
Right.
So in a lot of these letters, he's correcting them. They must be doing something wrong. Y'all got to do it this way. No, you know what? Y'all doing it wrong. Do it like this. And another thing too, when you read that, I want y'all to listen to this, family, because people always equate this 1 Corinthians chapter 11 only to women. This is only dealing with women having their head covered. We got to think about that. Excuse me, family. So we're going to break this whole thing down.
We're going to break it down today.
Paul is establishing order, family. And you know what's funny? And we say this all the time, family. We got order everywhere else in society. When you're on a job, don't you have a boss? Can you just go up to your boss and say all kind of crazy stuff? You know what? Today I'm the boss.
Right.
Y'all follow my orders.
See how quick you get fired.
How that work out for you, family? If this type of chaos was going on at your job, you wouldn't even stay there. You'd be like, we gotta have some order in here, man. The janitor giving me orders.
Right.
I'm the CEO. I gotta clean the bathrooms. No, family. Come on now. We gotta do it different.
Yes.
We gotta do it different, family. So let's break down these scriptures. We're gonna go line by line, family, and see what each of these mean. So let's start back again. 1 Corinthians, I'm gonna start at verse 2. You want to go to the next page? He says, now I praise you. So again, family, he's praising the assembly. You know what? Brethren, that you remember me in all things and keep the traditions just as I delivered them to you. So he's like, I told y'all the ordinances. I told y'all the customs. I told y'all the traditions. You know what? For the most part, y'all following them. So hand clap. I'm praising y'all. Verse 3 says, but I want you to know that the head of every man is Mashiach. The head of woman is man. And the head of Mashiach is Yah. Now, why in the world is Paul starting off the letter like that? Sounds like Paul is establishing order, family, right? He starts a letter like that at the beginning. We need to understand, y'all pagans, y'all Greeks, y'all Romans, y'all don't know what order look like. This is order in our walk, in our belief.
Right.
Man over the woman.
Right.
The Messiah over the man. Messiah over man, and Yah is over the Mashiach. That's what order looks like, family. Verse 4, he says, every man praying or prophesying. This is important, family. He says, every man praying or prophesying. Is it just because he in the assembly? He has to be doing something. He has to be doing something, family. Every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, this honors his head. But every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered, this honors her head. For that is one and the same, as if her head were shaved. The big question here is, what does uncovered mean? What is Paul talking about when covered? Because some people think it's the hair or it's a literal piece of fabric. What is Paul talking about? Where is he getting this from? Let's look at what that word means, family. Uncovered. That's the Greek number 177, and that word is akata kaluptos, and that definition is uncovered. Usages are unveiled, uncovered. And family, it's a combination of two words, akata and kaluptos. That word kalupto is Greek number 2572. It means to cover, veil, hide, conceal, envelop. So it means veil, hide, cover. What would Paul know about veiling? What would he know about covering and hiding for a woman? Paul was a Hebrew, right? Hebrew of the Hebrews. He would have gone back in the old covenant, in the law, and pull out the examples, right? So let's look at those examples, family. We're going to go to Genesis 24, starting at verse 63. You want to read that?
It says, and Isaac went out to meditate in the field toward evening. And he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, there were camels coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel, and said to the servant, "Who is that man walking in the field to meet us?" The servant said, "It is my master." So she took her veil and covered herself. Then Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death.
So I want y'all to see a couple of things in this verse, family. This is important. We have to understand this. If the context of this story is this, this is when Abraham sent his servant. Now his servant was a male. If you go back and look at Genesis at the beginning of the chapter, verses 2 through 6, it tells you that this is a male, right? He sent his male servant to go get his son Isaac a wife, which was Rebekah. So he brought her back to Isaac. But something was happening. Isaac was afar off. She was right there with Abraham's servant, which was a man. She did not have a cover on, because she had to. It says she put on her veil when she saw Isaac coming, her future husband coming. Then she veiled herself. That being before then, she was not veiled.
Right.
She was not covered. But I thought the woman had to be covered at all times.
Well, and you know what? There's people that actually believe that women should be covered all the time, and the only person that should see her hair is her husband behind closed doors in their homes.
Right.
They actually have congregations that's their doctrine.
Oh, we see it all the time, a lot, and it's not just in the truth; it's Christians too. We see it. But that was interesting that she was not covered on first. When she saw Isaac coming, she covered herself up.
Right. Which shows us that was some sort of custom, right?
To veil, to cover up, and to put on a veil.
When you know you're about to be married.
So it seems like it might be a symbol for marriage or something. Something dealing with marriage.
Something dealing with marriage.
And if we look at that word veil, it's Hebrew number 6809, and that word is saif. And the definition, family, is a wrapper, shawl, or veil. So like you said, it seems like it was a custom, or it was something dealing with acknowledging marriage.
Yes.
Acknowledging her husband. Isn't that something like what we do today?
It's something like what we do today. Because like in the Old Covenant scriptures, there were actually something that was called visual markers. And that was one of them, a visual marker, where you could see a woman, when she's veiled, like then they understood, okay, a marriage is about to take place. Now I'm talking about in this situation. They knew, okay, a marriage is about to take place, because what they said, he came to her and then he took her with him and he went into her. We know what that means, because that was how they married back then. But obviously it was a custom, how she knew to have a veil on her, and to put that veil on her, to cover herself with the veil for her, what we would call it today, groom. So that was one of their visual markers. But we also have different customs today. Today there are different cultures that have different customs. But those things happened back then. As they often say, it's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
Because they had the Greeks, the Gentile nation. So I'm sure they had their own markers and customs that they partook in. But today, we still have those things with the different cultures today. Some of them, I'm going to first start with ours. Wedding rings.
Right.
Yes, Brother Rasha and I both wear wedding rings. This is the custom of America, where we all live today. And we've gotten questions about this before in the past. We actually talk about this in our, what is it,
Pagans Among Us.
Pagans Among Us.
That's a good teaching, fam. If you haven't seen it yet,
yes,
go check it out.
We would encourage you to check it out. Because we touched on some important things there. But this is our markers here in America. Some people do not wear wedding rings. I'm talking about in the Israelite belief. But some people do. And there are some that don't wear it because they believe it's pagan and they don't want to touch it. And that's why we again, Pagan Among Us. We encourage you to check that out. But some people, like we said too, they do wear it. For me, I wear it because I know it's nothing pagan about what I'm wearing. The reason why I wear this ring is because, think about this. People who are not in truth, who do not understand this truth, like us who are in the Word, learning the Word, following the Word, many people, they don't understand that about if you have a head covering on that you're married. Because different cultures wear head coverings as well, which is, we're going to talk about that in a few. But they won't understand that if a man sees a woman and she has a head covering and he looks at her and he won't understand she's married.
Right. She's taken.
She's taken because because actually they have other women who wear it for fashion.
Exactly.
Women who are not married. Young women. You know, different types of women, they wear head coverings. That does not always represent a woman being married. Right, marriage. And so we know in America, one thing we know for sure,
everybody knows,
shadow of a doubt.
When you see that ring,
back up.
Back up.
And that is why I wear it, because my symbol is back up. Because I know you're going to understand this symbol.
Right.
Don't approach me. I'm taken. And I have a head over me, which is my husband. And so this is why we wear it. And we know why we do it. And we know without a shadow of a doubt, it ain't nothing pagan about us. I'm saying, like, unless we doing it because we know we're in the land of our captives. Just like we have to spend money. We know the money is pagan. We know the things on there is pagan. But what? We still have to use it, right?
Yep.
To buy our necessities. So we have to sometimes just think about things and make sure that we are making it make sense.
Right. Absolutely.
But there are some cultures who do wedding rings as well. Just like we know of what we've learned in China, that some of the men, this was an old custom. They said that the men, many of them don't wear wedding rings in China because they have multiple wives, or a lot of times they get multiple wives. So they don't want to have a wedding ring and be confined to one. Right. So they don't wear it. But the women wear the wedding rings, the ones who they marry. They'll wear the wedding rings, just not the men. And then I've also read too, because which I kind of skipped over this, but I want to mention this as well. Some markers are with clothing, with certain hairstyles, accessories, jewelry, tattoos, and other bodily ornaments. We're not going to touch on all of them today because it would be too much. But I've read one where some do tattoos, and the reason why they do it is because the men, they work. They have hard jobs where they like physical jobs, and they don't want to mess up their wedding rings on the job. So they just don't get a physical wedding ring. They'll put a tattoo ring around their finger. Right. That's another custom. Right. There is a custom with the Amish. This is the Amish belief. And this is for the men. The men who are married wear beards in their custom. And the ones who are unmarried, they are required to shave. So that is their custom as Amish men. And let's see, the Ashkenazi Jewish communities, Now we're talking about the ones that we talked about this
right,
before.
The people that's over there.
Right.
Not the Israelites.
Right. Not the Israelites of the book.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that. We have messages about that too.
We understand. We did a whole documentary, so we understand who's who.
Who's who. But the Ashkenazi Jews, they we'll say the women, they wear head coverings, which represents marriage for them. But it's not just head coverings. They also wear hats, and they also wear wigs. So that is their custom. It's not just a head covering. Some wear head coverings, some wear hats, some wear wigs. Another one is in the Hindu people. In their belief, a lot of them wear bangles, which is the thing that goes around the wrist, like some bracelets. And they wear it on both hands. And they said they never remove them unless they get divorced or become widowed. That's the only time they remove it.
And I want to do something a little bit new, family. I want to share some pictures. We normally don't put pictures on the screen, but I want to show y'all some pictures of some head coverings, because I think it's important that we see this, family.
Right.
Because we see them today, we see different styles, but like what Sister Abiyah was reading, different cultures, they do different things.
So
let's look at these women with these head coverings. Some have, they call it a hijab, where it shows the face and it's covering their hair, covering the neck. Have another where it just shows their eyes. A burqa covers the whole face. These are all veils, family. These are all coverings. They have some called a full body cloak. And they got another one that it covers the hair, the neck, and the shoulders. This woman on the end. So we see different versions of it, family.
Right.
And then what you read about the Amish, let's see theirs right quick. I have a picture too of the Amish. Amish wear head coverings too, family. So
yes. Ooh, that's plenty of. We're gonna get to that.
Look at these women. All of them. And then they got it to where it's covering like the back.
Right.
So different cultures have different head coverings.
Right. And that is their markers for their that's what's customary for them. Their customs.
So let's read this next. Let's see another example in the scriptures, family, of a veil, of a covering. Let's look at, this is Genesis 38, starting at Genesis chapter 38, starting at verse 12. You want to read that?
And it's going to be from verse 12 to 19, but again, starting at verse 12. It says, and in the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Yahudah's wife, died, and Yahudah was comforted, and went up unto his sheep shearers to Timnah. He and his friend Hira the Adulamite, and it was told Tamar, saying, behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnah to shear his sheep.
Pause right there. Now, give a little backstory on Tamar. Tamar was Yahudah's first son's wife. Remember, he died. Yahudah had 3 sons. His first son died. Then you remember the story, family. He told the second son, go into her, to your son's wife. She was a widow, and give her a seed for your brother.
Wife,
your brother's wife. Yep, your brother's wife. Give her a seed. The second son was like, nope. He spilled the seed on the ground. Remember that, family? Then he told Yah killed both of them, both the sons. Struck both of them because Yah was not happy with them. So Yahudah told Tamar, go back to your hometown, go back with your father, go back to your father's house. The third son was young. Told him when he gets old, I'm going to let him marry you. This is going to be your husband. So that's the context of the story, family.
Now this is Yahudah that told her that.
Yahudah.
Which Judah.
Is Judah. Judah, family.
In English.
Right.
So we're starting at verse 14. And she put on her widow's garments Because remember, she found out where Yahudah was going to be.
Mm-hmm. He's going to Timnah.
He's going to Timnah.
Mm-hmm.
So she put on her widow's garments off from her. It says she took it off because what this is showing us, this was a custom too.
Mm-hmm.
When there was a widow, they had a certain widow's garments that they put on.
Certain type of clothes that they put on that the people would know. You know what? That's a widow.
That's a widow.
Mm.
And I would like to ask too, are we doing that today?
Do we still have widow's garment? Is that true? Because today, oh my goodness, they are having divorce parties.
Oh. What?
Divorce, widow, that
Widow,
don't mean nothing today. Widow
What?
mean time to party.
Time to party.
I'll never forget when we was riding down that street not too far from my mama's
goodness.
house.
Yes.
Y'all probably seen it in y'all area, family.
Yes.
A man had a sign in the yard. What it said something like, "I'm celebrating my divorce."
I think he said finally divorced.
Finally got rid of her or something.
Finally, he said divorce. He said finally got the divorce.
Finally got the divorce. He put a whole yard sign.
And it was like some balloons and stuff. It was like he was cheering about it.
Yes, it was a celebration for him. So,
I think he said thank goodness.
Something. It was. We should have took a picture of it.
Right, but I know it was him rejoicing about his divorce. Oh my goodness, you all probably seen that. If you did, put it in the chat.
Right.
But we've seen something like that. And they have things out here in Louisiana where people call it a divorce party event.
Yes.
That they give to celebrate. Oh, the divorce. Oh, we talking about divorce. I mean widow, but they're saying a widow's clothes, like the woman is you're gonna say that she's a widow. Mm-hmm. The women, the people that's getting divorced today, or whoever women, a widow is a woman. Mm-hmm. They're not wearing the widow's clothes, right? No.
So it's different.
Yeah,
it's different, family.
But on 14 it says, and she put her widow's garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place, which is by the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given unto him to wife. Oh, so that's the son. That was the one that Yahudah said, right, I'm going to give him to you. But she said she seen him grown, and like, okay, you didn't give him to me. Instead of being patient, she did something else. It says, when Yahudah saw her, he thought her to be an harlot, because she had covered her face. Wow. What did she cover her face with? Verse 14. It says, and covered her with a veil. With a veil, you all. It says she took off her widow's garment and covered herself with a veil and wrapped herself. Sat at an open place, which is by the way to Timnah. Remember, that's where Yahudah was traveling. For she saw. Oh, I read this already. We have to read it again. Right. But but she put on a veil, and it says that Yahudah saw her, and he thought that she was an harlot because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way and said, go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee. You all, I'm going to tell you, this was a hard one for me to take in. This was a hard one for me to take in when I seen what Yahudah did. What? He went after the harlot. He went after. He knew it was a harlot. And he's like, he knew because they said because she covered her face. And he was like, let's go. And he said, wilt thou give me a pledge? Well, I went too far, I think. Let's see. Yep, I went too far. 17. I'm at 17 now. And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, wilt thou give me a pledge? till thou send it?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, what pledge shall I give thee? And she said, thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thy hand. And he gave it her. Wow. And came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. So, whoa.
So she left the veil there. She left her covering there and put back on her widow's clothes.
Wow.
Widowhood clothing.
So she used manipulation.
Oh, yes. She tricked them.
Yahuwah.
Right.
To get what she wanted. She used manipulation.
She wanted a son, a seed, whatever.
Right.
Wanted to get pregnant.
Right. But as we can see that when it came to a veil, it was not just the women who put on a veil for marriage or symbol of marriage.
Yes.
It was also prostitutes too who put on veils. Now, this is not to condemn. Want to make this clear because we all come from somewhere. We all come from sin. None of us is worthy of salvation. You know, praise Yah for Yahushua that we are delivered. We are all healed. But we just want to say veils were not just for the married.
Right.
The prostitutes also would put on veils. But it said here she covered her face with her veil.
Right. And remember, the veil is a covering. It covers them. So what we're saying is this, family. What we can take away from this, like what Sister Abiel said. Veil could represent different things. It depends on the context. Depends who's wearing it. Veil could be for marriage. Could be a symbol for marriage. Oh, a veil could also be a symbol for prostitution. Let's look at modern examples of this, family. Let me show you these images. Let's look at coverings. Let's look at veils. We saw these other images. We know. You're gonna read first? We're gonna read it. Hold on. Let's look at let's look at these images first. This is important. A gypsy, she has a head covering. A witch, wearing a head covering, family. Look at these two men. Warlocks, witches, they have on coverings. Look at these Catholics. Catholic men, family. Head coverings. The Pope. The Pope has a head covering, family. Found these images online. These would be considered witch doctors. She has her little trinkets, all her little magical things. Her head is covered. So head coverings, veils do not just mean a symbol of marriage, something positive. It could also mean something negative. Let's look at these. Look at nuns. Nuns wear head coverings too. So that means you can't wear a head cover because nuns wear head coverings. Because a lot of people use that logic, and then again that goes back to our pagans amongst us video. You can't do this because it means that. No, you have to look at the context of stuff and see what they actually meant. Because anybody can use that argument for anything. You said you had seen a documentary about nuns or something?
I did. I did, you all. I actually want to tell you all the name of that documentary. I don't know if some of you seen it, but I would encourage you to. I don't know. It's more of a recording. You're going to hear the lady talk, but she was an ex-nun, but she disappeared.
Look at this nun. She has a whole veil on, family.
It's called, this is very, very good, you all, because I listened to it years ago, and it's still on YouTube, and I learned so much about the RCC. It's called Shocking Confession of Sister Charlotte Farmer, a Roman Catholic Nun. You all take a look at that. Actually listen to it whenever you get a chance. Some of you probably listened to it before. Some of you probably already heard what she's talking about. But it reveals a lot about that religion.
Absolutely.
And so you see them wearing these head coverings.
Veils. That's deep. Let's look. And we saw images when they portrayed Jezebel. Don't they show it with a head covering? They show it with a veil. Right, family? So it's not just positive. We can see has negative connotations too, family, depending on the context.
Right.
Let's look. I saw this one. Rihanna has a head covering. Whoa. Huh? She an Israelite? She in the truth? Because she got on her head covering? And I want to show these images, family, because you said you had read an article about, they're saying about how wedding rings is pagan and all these things.
Yep, I want to share something with you all just to show the biasness that goes on in this world today. It actually was talking about wedding rings and head coverings, but it was somebody who was trying to promote head coverings. But of course they did a horrible job at it. They said the head covering symbolizes the truth of headship, which is that a woman's authority is man, and that she was created for the man. So head covering is an affirmation of creation order truths, a joyful acceptance of biblical womanhood. Wedding rings in our culture, this is a person that's speaking against wedding rings. Wedding rings in our culture do not carry this meaning. They are worn by everyone from atheists
from atheists, okay,
to feminists, to unfaithful men, and women. So I guess a head covering makes
you holy.
People faithful.
This piece of cloth is going to make you faithful. It's going to make you holy.
After everything we just went over. A ring has no deeper meaning than you are married in our culture. Just like we could say the same thing, right?
Yeah. Exactly. That's why I showed those images. We saw Rihanna had a head covering. The nuns had head coverings.
Matter of fact, you all Satanists as well wear head coverings. They also wear head coverings. It does not indicate you are faithful to your spouse. So they're saying a ring doesn't indicate you're faithful to your spouse. Or that you joyfully accept Yah's role, it has God, role and purpose in gender or marriage. It's also notable that the symbol Yah gave us to visually communicate headship is a symbol on one's head. A finger symbol fails to communicate headship like a head symbol does.
Is that really true, family?
All of what we just went over.
We showed y'all all the images of other people who had headship on their heads. Witch doctors.
Yes, they even have something called is the Sikhism. This is a culture. This is India, and they say they wear turbans on their head. They wear head coverings, which is turbans, but their symbol is a symbol of equality, showing that people wear head coverings for different reasons. But they have. Matter of fact, I wanted to share this because you mentioned the witch. We seen a documentary of a girl who was talking about the things she would do to bewitch people. And she said she would actually go to churches and church events. And she would cover her head. So she covered up her head with head coverings.
She was a witch, right?
She was a witch when she did it.
With head coverings.
And guess what? She said she wore long skirts and long shirts. And she presented a holy image. This is what she said.
Mm-hmm.
This is how she manipulated and fooled people. So witches do these things also.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about a ring and talk about all of the different people that wear a ring, like the witches or however they said it in the article, we can also say the same thing for head coverings.
Mm.
So we have to be careful with that. We have to be careful with that and understanding what this walk is all about, which is what we've been saying from the beginning and will continue to say until the end, that this walk is spiritual and it is a heart thing. It is a heart thing.
Let's dive a little bit more. Let's see another example in the scriptures of that head covering, what it means, that veil. What are they actually trying to communicate? Song of Solomon, chapter 4. I'm going to just read verse 1. Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 1, family. It says, "Behold, you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. You have dove's eyes behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats going down from Mount Gilead." So this is Solomon talking to his bride, to his wife, and he's telling her that you have dove's eyes behind your veil. So it's something positive. Again, a symbol of marriage. We saw the symbol, marriage, and we saw where it symbolized prostitution. So again, we have to look at context, family. And again, what this Sister Abiyah just said. Well, I'm gonna hold my fire. We're gonna hold our fire. I'm gonna hold it back till we go a little bit longer.
I want to mention this too. That remember what Brother Rashad just read. It said, King Solomon said to his bride, "You have dove's eyes behind your veil." So he was actually letting it be known that she had a veil covering her face. Just like they said for the prostitute who had a veil covering her face. And it said, "Your temples behind your veil." So even her temples, all of this here was behind the veil. All of this was behind the veil. So this right here is saying, for some who probably would assume that it was just the head covering on top of the head. No, some wore the head coverings that covered the face. The veils that covered, the veil, I'm going to say the veil, that covered the face, because we just read it. This was King Solomon talking about his bride.
Absolutely. So that was the example we saw in the Old Covenant of women with veil and having coverings. It could mean something positive, it could mean something negative, depending on the context, right? Let's look at men. Did men have to have head coverings? Because Paul talked about that. He said if a man prays with his head uncovered, he dishonors his head. Let's see, where is he pulling that from? Let's look at Exodus chapter 28 verse 4, where it's talking about men covering their head. It says, "And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, an ephod, and a robe, and a broidered coat, a mitre," some translations say turban, "and a girdle, and they shall make holy garments for Aaron thy brother and his sons, that they may minister unto me in the priesthood." So I want to show y'all this picture, family. This is the garment for the priesthood. That's important for the priesthood. We see that white,
a Levitical priest.
Yes, Levitical priest. We see that white turban at the top. So that's a head covering for the men. Not for the men, for the Levite priests.
Right?
Let's look at another example. Leviticus 10 verse 6. It says, "And Moses said to Aaron and to Eleazar and Ithamar his sons, Do not uncover your heads, nor tear your clothes, lest you die, and wrath come upon all the people, lest your brethren, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning which Yahuwah has kindled. You shall not go out from the door of the tabernacle of meeting, lest you die. For the anointing oil of Yahuwah is upon you, and they that did according to the word, and they did according to the word of Moses. So Moses telling the Levites, do not uncover your head. Do not take that covering off of your head. He's specifically addressing Aaron, his sons, the Levitical priest family. But what about men that are not priests? Did they wear hair coverings? What was the relationship, family? What did it mean when a man had a head covering, or when he covered his head? Let's look at scriptures. We got some scriptures, family. 2 Samuel. Right here. 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 30.
Okay.
You want to read that?
It says, and David went up by the ascent of Mount Olivet, by the ascent of Mount Olivet, and wept as he went up, and had his head covered. And he went barefoot, and all the people that was with him covered every man his head. And they went up, weeping as they went up.
So it says David and every man that was with them covered their head. Why did they cover their head? Well, it says they was weeping as they went up, so they may have been sad or they crying for something.
Right.
Let's look at these different translations to get a better understanding. The New Living Translation says this, family. His head was covered and his feet were bare as a sign of mourning. So a head covered means a sign of mourning. The Amplified says this. You want to read the Amplified?
It says, and David went up the ascent of the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went, with his head covered and walking barefoot in despair.
So it's a sign of mourning. You in despair. Don't seem like it's something to be happy about, nothing to be proud about, covering
like
your
sadness.
head. Sadness. Great example. Let's look at Mordecai. Esther chapter 6 verse 12. It says, and Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning. Goes back to David. And having his head covered. So having your head covered as a man meant a sign of mourning. It's a sign of despair. Sadness. Another example, Jeremiah 14 verses 3 and 4. You want to read that?
It says, and their nobles have sent their little ones to the waters. They came to the pits and found no water. They returned with their vessels empty. They were ashamed and confounded and covered their heads, because the ground is chapped, for there was no rain in the earth. The plowmen were ashamed. They covered their heads.
So they were ashamed and they covered their heads. So family, let's recap a little bit. Let's see where we're at. Family, we're talking about head coverings. Cover your head. Should a woman cover her head? Should a man cover his head? We talked about the symbolism in the old covenant for the woman, family. It was a sign of marriage, a symbol of marriage. It's also a symbol of prostitution. For a woman to be veiled, for a woman to be covered.
Right.
For the men, if a man covered his head, if he was not a Levite priest, it was a shame. He was mourning. Regular men were not to cover their heads, family. This is what Paul would have known as the Hebrew of Hebrews. He's teaching this to these Gentiles, to the converts. So let's jump back into the text. I think we got that part covered, family. What does covered mean? What was Paul talking about? So let's dive back into our main text. Our main text is 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Now we will break down verse, where we at? Verse 6. So we already read 1 through 5. Let's tackle verse 6. It says this, family. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 6. It says, for if a woman is not covered, let her also be shorn. Shorn meaning short haircut. Shave. But if it is shameful for a woman to be shorn or shaved, bald head, short haircut, let her be covered. And when he says if, remember family, if is conditional. If mean, okay, if this happens, then that happens.
Right.
In the event of. If this, then that. Paul said, if a woman is not covered, then let her have some short hair. But if, again, conditional, if it is shameful for a woman to have short hair or bald head, let her be covered. So it seems like it's an option. It seems like it's an option because, again, Paul would know about short hair, long hair. You hear different debates about this. Woman can't have short hair. Woman can have long hair. We've seen some where they say women let their hair grow out as long as it can be. Men let their hair grow out as long as they want it to be.
But in the law, they had to trim their hair and keep it a certain length.
Yes.
And it was like when they had long hair in the scriptures, it was a Nazareth, wasn't it? A vow.
We're going to touch that right. Let's touch that right quick. So let's go into the law and see what Paul was talking about. First, let's address the short hair, a bald head for a woman. We see only one example. Well, we see one example. There's multiple examples, but we see one example of this. Deuteronomy 21:10, it says this: when you go out to war against your enemies, and Yahuwah your Elohim delivers them into your hand, and you take them captive, and you see among the captives a beautiful woman, and desire her, and will take her for your wife, then you shall bring her home to your house, and you shall shave her head, and trim her nails. She shall put off the clothes of her captivity, remain in your house, and mourn her father and her mother a full month. After that, you may go into her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. So we see in the law that if they took a woman captive and made a foreigner their wife, the woman was supposed to cut her head bald, shave her head. So it was permissible.
Right. Matter of fact, for the Nazareth, oh, never mind.
Right.
I keep going there.
Let's read that.
Oh my goodness.
Let's go to the Nazarite vow. Let's go to the Nazarite vow. In fact, we got that question a while back. So a woman asked, could a woman take a Nazarite vow? Well, we're about to find out. Numbers chapter 6, starting at verse 1. You want to read that?
It says, then Yahuwah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, when either a man or woman consecrate an offering to take the vow of a Nazarite, to separate himself to Yahuwah, he shall separate himself from wine and similar drink. He shall drink.
It said when either a man or a woman?
When either a man or a woman.
So a woman could take a Nazarite vow.
Well, she could have taken, because that was in the law.
Right.
Back then, this is what they were doing, the Nazarite vows. But yes, it says either a man or a woman. And then it says he shall, where am I? Is it 3? I believe it says, and he shall separate himself from the wine and similar drink. He shall drink neither vinegar made from wine or vinegar made from similar drink. Neither shall he drink any grape juice, nor eat fresh grapes or raisins. All the days of his separation, he shall eat nothing that is produced by the grapevine, from the seed to skin. All the days of the vow of his separation, no razor shall come upon his head.
So the hair can grow long.
The hair can grow long until the days are fulfilled, for which he separated himself to Yahuwah. He shall be set apart, he shall be holy. Then he shall let the locks of his hair grow. Then the Nazarite shall shave his consecrated head at the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and shall take the hair from his consecrated head and put it on the fire, which is under the sacrifice of the peace offering.
Y'all heard that, family? So if you take a Nazarite vow, man or woman, you can let your hair grow long. A razor can't come to your head. And we know the most famous Nazarite of all, Samson, was in love with his hair. He never cut it. Thought all his power would come from his hair. Made his hair his idol. And a woman could take the Nazarite vow. So what it said, when they finish with the vow, what they have to do?
Cut their hair and sacrifice it. Offer it up as a sacrifice.
Shave all the hair off of their head, and they could sacrifice. So you can have long hair, you could be bald. It was permissible in the law, family.
Right.
And Paul knew about it. He took a Nazarite vow. Acts chapter 18, verse 18. You want to read that?
It says, so Paul still remained a good while. Then he took leave of the brethren and sailed for Syria, and Priscilla and Aquila were with him. He had his hair cut off at Syria, for he had taken a vow.
So what, Paul got bald too?
Yeah.
He took the Nazarite vow. So family, like we said, Paul would know about this. So it would be, but this is what Paul is saying. When we read that verse, it was 1 Corinthians 11:6. He said, if a woman hair is, it don't matter if your hair is short or if it's bald. Guess what? You still got to put that covering over your head. You still have to put that covering over your head. That's what Paul was telling them. Why was he telling them that? Well, we're going to find out. Why was he saying that? Let's continue breaking down 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Let's go to verse 7. He said, for a man indeed ought not to cover his head. He says, since he is the image and glory of Yah, but woman is the glory of man. Why is he saying man ought not to cover his head? Because he is in the image and glory of Yah. Again, he's getting that from the old covenant, family. Got it from Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. It says, so Yah created man in his own image. In the image of Yah, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So this is what it's saying. Yeah. Man is the image of Yah.
Right.
Verse 8. For man is not for woman, but woman for man. Nor was man created for the woman, but woman for the man. Where is he getting that from, family? That's the Adam and Eve story, the origin story. What Yah did, took a rib from Adam to create Eve.
Right.
Verse 10, for this woman ought to have a symbol of authority on her head. Because of the angels.
Who was Paul talking to? Who was he talking to? Do you all remember at the beginning? Who was Paul talking to? Was he talking to the whole world?
He was talking specifically to that assembly. Why was he telling them all this? There must have been a lot of disorder, chaos, women out of order.
Women out of order. Women out of order.
He said because of the angels. Why are you talking about the angels? Remember, the Malaks are always around us, family. At all times.
Watching.
They are watching, fam. This is what
Watching
Paul
us.
is saying. He's like, y'all show some authority. Like, y'all got to have some order in here. Y'all got to have some authority in here. The Malaks are watching. So they have to see some order in y'all's assembly. I don't see it.
Matter of fact, too, you think about it, you have the angels. Remember, they have righteous angels and unrighteous angels. So whenever we leave, remember what we've been saying. Whenever we leave an opening and we operating in the flesh, then that opening, we can be attacked by the wicked angels.
Absolutely.
So the angels watching, you have Yah's righteous angels and you have the wicked angels who could attack you if you're operating in the flesh.
Yes, and you're out of order.
And you out of order.
You're out of order. Remember, family, Paul is establishing order. What verse we on? Okay, verse 11, family. He says, nevertheless, neither is man independent of woman, nor woman independent of man. So he's saying they're interdependent. Y'all need each other.
Right.
He says, in the master. Verse 12, for as woman came from man, even so man also comes through woman.
We both need each
Both
other.
need each other. Man, you're not so strong that you know, oh, I can self-create. I don't need no woman. Huh? I never seen her, even know what the world preaching today, that men could get pregnant and all this other stuff. Nah. No.
Even Mashiach came through a woman. I want Mashiach himself.
We gotta cut the mic, cut the camera off. Cut the camera off, family.
Even Mashiach came from
our
a woman.
Savior came
Through a
from
woman.
a woman.
So
Think about that, family.
both need each other.
And this part is important, the next part. Remember who he is writing to, family. He is writing to a variety. He's writing to the assembly in Corinth, the Corinthians. These are a mixed group of people. These are pagans, some Israelites with them too. But he has to explain order to them, what that would look like. You got Romans in there, Greeks, all these different cultures, pagans.
Right.
See if I could pull this image up right quick. I want y'all to see something right quick, family.
Oh, like I gotta set some order.
I gotta set order because not only the women wilding out, the woman not covered, not at all. usurping the man's authority. The men, he telling them don't cover your head. So if he telling them not to cover their head, they must be covering their heads. Right? Let's look at some of these images, family. This is some Romans and pagans. They had head coverings too, family. Remember, they were in the assembly. Look at this. A Roman has a head covering on. He has his head covering. This is one of the governors or something. Look at this woman. Roman woman. She has a veil on. Let's look at this other. They did. Look at these women. These Roman women. They doing some type of religious sacrifice. Burning incense. Don't they have their head covered? Look at this mirror of this. These Romans, they're doing a sacrifice. They're sacrificing this bull. You see this priest? Look at that priest on the left side, family. He's putting something on that altar. His head is covered. Everybody else's head is not covered. So Romans, the pagans, they were familiar with head coverings. Paul is telling them, nah, we don't do that. Y'all, this is out of order. The man, y'all got to take those coverings off. Women, when y'all praying or prophesying, cover your heads within the assembly.
Because they were what?
Out of order. We have to establish order. This is what Paul was doing, family.
Y'all don't know order? Well, I'm going to establish some order for y'all.
Yes. And listen to verse 13, family. Paul says this. He says, judge among yourselves. So he's like, I'm telling y'all this, but y'all need to judge if this is what y'all going to do. He's not saying that this is law. He's not saying that this is law, family. He's saying y'all judge what y'all going to do.
What you just said? He's not saying what?
This is law.
That's important, y'all.
Paul said, judge among. I'm leaving the decision up to y'all. This is for y'all because we're going to see. Remember, Sister Abby, y'all been repeating the same thing throughout the whole lesson. Who was Paul speaking to? He's speaking to this assembly at Corinth because he's going to write another letter to another assembly. He's going to say something different. He's going to say something different. Telling us that this is not law. Verse 13. Judge among yourselves, is it proper for a woman to pray to Yah with her head uncovered? Does not even nature itself teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a dishonor to him? What? What Paul talking about? We just read about the Nazarite vow. The man can let his hair grow. You're not supposed to cut your hair. Where is he getting that from? He must be making a distinction. Let's look at Ezekiel 44:20, family. See what Paul talking about. You read that for me?
It says, they shall not shave their heads or let their locks grow long. They shall surely trim the hair of their heads.
He's getting that from here, family. He's saying, men, y'all can't let y'all hair grow like some women.
That's exactly what he's saying.
Trim y'all hair. We can see a distinction. Who's who. Y'all hair not supposed to be all long like some women. He's making a difference. I think he was commanding. Yeah, he was commanding this to the priest too, telling them, cut y'all. Nah, keep that thing nice and neat.
Don't you come grow that too long.
No.
Looking like a woman.
Right. Why? Let's look at the next verse. Verse 15. Read that for me.
It says, but if a woman has long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given to her for a covering. It doesn't say that for the men. It's talking about the woman. It says our hair is our glory. It says it is given to us as a covering. You
mean this is not the covering?
But if a woman has long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given to her for a covering.
This needs to be on at all times. You cannot show this. Hide it. Hide it. Oh, you're right. My bad. Hide it.
Oh,
you have to hide your glory.
I didn't put Brother Rush out.
You have to hide the glory. Does scripture say that? That you got to hide the glory? Or is that something man-made? That's custom. That is a tradition.
We're going to see.
We're going to see, because some people, we said it earlier, some doctrines, some faiths, some religions, women have to have this covered at all times. They cannot show their hair. They cannot show it.
At all times.
Let's see what happened with Yahushua.
Sometimes those women be working hard in the heat, in the sun. You know what? But, I'm going to leave it be. I'm going to leave it be. You know what? Everybody got to work out their own salvation with fear and trembling.
Yes.
So bless them.
And that's what y'all put on their heart.
That's what y'all put on their heart. But what I'm saying is how what you said is that if that's what y'all put on their heart, then I could respect it. But not when someone says you have to do this, you have to do that, and if you don't do it, you're not righteous. When our righteousness on our own righteousness is as filthy rags. We all need Mashiach Yahushua. This is how we become whole, by relying on what he did for us on the stake. Looking to Yahuwah to perfect our ways each day. But we hear that where we hear women get criticized for not wearing head coverings, making her feel like she's not righteous.
People will not talk to you. We've heard people say you can't even come in the assembly. Don't even step in here. Don't even fellowship with us. Don't step in here.
Or they're going to look at you sideways and make you feel very bad.
Because the woman's head always supposed to be covered. Did Yahushua say that? Let's look at John 11:2, family. Read that for me.
It was Mary who anointed Yahushua with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill.
She wiped his feet with her hair, but I thought the hair was supposed to be covered at all times.
How did she do that if her hair was covered? How was she able to wipe Yahushua's feet?
Let's ask an even better question. Why didn't Yahushua say, Mary, what are you doing? What are you doing pulling your hair out of from underneath your covering? I'm not supposed to see your hair.
He's not. If anybody was supposed to say something, it would be him, right?
Exactly.
Our Messiah himself.
Exactly.
Right?
He would have said, "Don't do that. No, that's a dishonor."
For those who feel like your head should be covered all the time. Why didn't Yahushua address anything about head coverings? Where did he say anything about some? It says, and it said he loved Mary. If you go on to read it, it'll say he loved Miriam and he loved Mary and Lazarus. And look, she wiped his feet with her hair. Sounds like a humble person, right?
Absolutely.
Sounds like a person with a good heart, right?
Look like her heart is in the right place.
Her heart is in the right place.
Sister Abiyah and Brother Rosh, y'all always talking about that heart. It's funny how it always comes to that. That's what it comes down to.
It's because that's what the word teaches us.
Y'all listen to what Paul ends this section of scripture with, family. We're talking about head covering. Should a woman cover her head? Should a man cover his head? We are breaking down 1 Corinthians chapter 11. We broke down 1 through verse 16, and we're ending with verse 16. Paul says this, family. But if anyone seems to be contentious, we have no such custom, nor do the churches of Yah, nor do the assemblies of Yah. Paul is saying, if y'all debating, if y'all cutting up behind this, and y'all are stuck on this, he's like, and y'all being contentious about this, he's like, nah, we don't have no custom like that. He's like, this is not of Yah. If you don't want to show order in the assembly, woman, you don't want to cover your head when you're praying and prophesying in the assembly, showing that you're submitting to authority, you got to roll out of here. Men, if y'all don't want to uncover y'all's head when y'all praying and prophesying, we don't have that custom. Y'all got to roll out of here. We don't do that. Paul is saying, family, not only is this spiritual. What you mean when he's saying it's spiritual, Brother Rashia? You got that in your phone when we broke down the definition of head?
Of head? Which one?
Well, the first part of 1 Corinthians. When it's talking about the head. I'll send you that picture. Look in your pictures. Family, this is spiritual and physical. This is what Paul is trying to show to this assembly. This is spiritual and this is physical when it comes to the head cover. What does he mean when he says this is spiritual? Well, let's read.
Talking about this?
The head. Let's see. No,
that's the one that I got.
Let's see. I'm gonna pull it up. Let me pull it up in the app. Yep. You want to read that for me again? The beginning of 1 Corinthians.
Yeah.
Let's see where Paul is talking about this is spiritual, family.
1 Corinthians starting where? At the beginning.
At the beginning.
Okay. Right here.
Yep.
Okay, it says, now I praise you, brethren, that you remember me in all things, and keep the ordinances as I delivered them to you. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Mashiach. Mashiach.
He talking about a physical? Is Mashiach literally on top of my head? He must be talking about something spiritual.
Authority, headship.
Oh, I got it. Let's look at that word head when he talks about head in this in that verse, family. Head, that's the Hebrew word Greek G2775. That word is kafel. It says the head, both of men of animals, since the loss of the head destroys life. If you don't have a head, you don't have life. If we don't have Yahushua, we do not have life. The other usage says a metaphor, anything supreme, chief, prominent. A chief meaning you over somebody, right? Chief, I mean supreme meaning something at the top. Of persons, master of a husband in relationship to his wife. So that seems like that's authority. That seems like that is spiritual.
I keep getting authority.
We always say, family, Yah loves, he's an Elohim of order.
Right.
He's an Elohim of order, family.
Right. And it says, but I would have you know that the head of every man is Mashiach, and the head of the woman is man.
Yes.
And the head of Mashiach is Yah.
Yes.
Which we know. So Mashiach got a head. It's Yah.
Yep.
Every man. Oh, that's it.
Yep, that's it. So when we seen head, family, it's talking about somebody that's over you. Supreme, chief, master. Everybody has a master over. Not only are we talking about physically, but spiritually.
Right.
Again,
Authority.
Yahushua not sitting on top of my head. But if I don't have him, I don't have life. We have nothing, family. If he's not head, supreme over all of us, we have nothing when it comes to a husband and wife relationship. Men will be like, you know what, my wife don't listen. Your wife not listening, she's not submitting because you're not following. You're not under the authority of Yahushua. Come under his authority. I promise you. She gonna follow. She gonna be in submission. But if you, honey, let's go out here. Let's go rob a bank. Let's go steal out the store.
Carnal things.
Let's go do all kind of wicked stuff. Nah.
Not a reflection of Yah's life.
She ain't following that mess, family.
Not a woman that is obedient to Yah. You know, and her husband is trying to cause her to sin.
Right.
Because a woman who loves Yah and really is in this walk, they're going to love Yah with all of their heart, soul, mind, and strength. And that is something that every one of us should do.
Absolutely.
Even our husbands. We and Brother Rasha, we said this before, and we'll say it again. We always tell each other that we're going to love Yah more than each other.
Yep.
I'm always gonna. He come first before my husband, before my children, and I always tell him to put Yah before me and our children, and I always tell our children, put Yah before me and your dad.
Yes.
I don't want to be first in none of their lives, because I know if Yah is first, everything else is gonna fall into this right place. So I don't want to. I do not want to be first in anybody's life, nor do I want it to be the other way around.
Right.
Absolutely.
And family, when we're saying what I was just saying, that Paul was teaching them, this is spiritual and it's physical. Not only the spiritual, you know what? Follow authority. Let's have order within the assembly. To establish that order, guess what? Women, y'all got to sit down. Y'all got to calm down. Y'all all out of order. Y'all usurping the authority of the men. Don't the scripture say that? The woman is not to teach a man, nor to usurp the man. Then this is talking within the assembly.
Within the assembly.
Within the assembly, family. Not to teach a man, not to usurp the authority of the men. So that means, guess what? The women was taking over the assembly. They was taking over the assembly, family. And Sister Abiyah and I have seen it.
Oh my goodness, have we not?
We have seen it.
Oh my goodness.
And these are people in the truth. We saw assemblies in the truth, where the women take over the assembly. What about what Paul was saying? We're supposed to be following the law, right? Paul saying the women to be quiet. Y'all don't teach the men. We saw the women going, battling with the men, battling with the pastors, usurping them.
Very disrespectful. Very disrespectful.
We was like, wow.
Now, tell me this. How I know, and we know without a shadow. Well, I'm gonna talk for myself. I'm gonna talk for Brother Rasha. But we talked about this already too. But how I know without a shadow of a doubt that it's talking about the authority part is because, and it's a heart thing more than a physical head covering, and it was for that particular assembly.
Right.
It's because if me and Brother Rasha is in a physical assembly, nobody got to tell me whether I have a head covering on my head or not. Nobody got to tell me about having respect for my brethren. If there's men preaching, if there's men up there, and I'm going to sit my butt down and I'm going to listen to the message. And I'm not going back and forth. We've seen women do it, stand up, going back and forth
and
with
look,
men
family,
that were preaching.
They had these on. They was covered.
And the sad thing about it is the men that were preaching were saying the right thing. They were saying good things. But those sisters could not hear it because they the one was trying to usurp authority over the man, which is what the scriptures tell us not to do. They could not hear the truth that was coming forth from these brothers because they were out of order. But I don't need nobody to tell me, respect your brother. Respect your husband if he's up there talking.
Yes.
Either way, respect him here. Respect your husband. Because what it said, that Eve was deceived, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, to just be like, I mean, we've seen it. They have some disrespect that goes on. And this happens in the world too, in Christianity, but it also can happen in the truth too, because we've seen it before. And when I seen it, I mean, I was just so saddened by that, because I was like, oh, I was like, if only she would let that brother talk, because there was some profound things that was being said. Right. So we have to, the thing is, what Paul was trying to say was to have spiritual order. Yes. Because if your heart is right, you're gonna already know. You studying the scriptures, you're gonna already know. No, I can't go that far. Right. I have to respect authority. It says I'm under the man. Yes. So I'm not gonna try to assert authority over a man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And back to that verse too, because some people say, and we've seen translations, what Paul is talking about, he's talking about a husband and wife. The husband is the head of the woman. Husband is the head of the wife, that is true, because that's how Yah established it. But he's talking about in creation too, how Yah established it. Right. The woman is subject to the man. Right. That's how it goes, family, and that's what you're talking about when we saw those occurrences take place within the assembly. It don't matter if that's single women, their husband not in the assembly with them. It's still, Paul is saying, I don't care if y'all single, y'all married. Y'all have to understand that there is authority in the assembly. We have to follow the authority. Brother Rasha, what you talking about when you're saying this is spiritual and it's physical? That's what Paul is trying to say. Family, Paul is only repeating what Yahushua was teaching. Yes. He taught the same thing. The analogy. When Yahushua said, if you hate your brother in your heart, you already committed murder. That's spiritual and physical, family. If I hate my brother in my heart, that's spiritual.
Right. It's not spiritual.
Exactly.
Right?
If murder, that's a physical act, right? Right. Yahushua said you already murdered him. That's what he's talking about.
And so if you don't hate him in your heart, are you going to murder him?
Thank you. The physical not going to manifest.
It's not going to manifest. This is why I gave the example of I don't have to have a head covering to know the order of Yah and whether I should be doing a certain thing or not. It starts in the heart. This is what we're saying. Goes back to, we often bring it up, but that's another example too. The adultery one, when it says if you look at a woman with a lustful intent, that you've already committed it in your heart, right? Life is spiritual. This walk is spiritual. This is what Paul was trying to say, but just like, think about it, you all. Just like in the Old Covenant scriptures, a lot of things was physical because they could not comprehend. They could not, they did not, their hearts were so hardened, you all, that they could not receive the spiritual part. They couldn't receive that it was really just spiritual. If you let Yah cleanse that heart and work on that heart, you ain't gonna have to worry about all the physical things that you're doing. Because your heart is right. He already, that's what he wants. Your heart.
Absolutely. Let's look at what Yahushua was saying. And what we're saying, what Paul was telling them, family. Remember when he told them, judge for yourselves? Paul was telling them, y'all make righteous judgments. Y'all make righteous judgments. This is what Yahushua said. John chapter 7, verse 24. You want to read that?
It says, do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment.
Judge with righteous judgment. This is what it's saying. If this is causing disorder, Y'all out of order. Y'all acting up. Because again, remember in 1 Corinthians 11 when he dropped down to 17, he said, y'all all out of order. When y'all coming to eat, when y'all assembling together, y'all getting drunk, y'all eating before the other ones. I mean, the church of Corinth, the assembly of Corinth family, they was wild. They did a lot of stuff. They was eating stuff, worship to idols. They was doing all kind of stuff.
Right.
So Paul was bringing some order to the whole situation, family.
Right.
Let's look at, you had that verse too, it's Jeremiah, when we talk about judges the appearance.
Oh,
You don't judge the appearance.
I
think that's Jeremiah. What was it? 31, I think.
This is wait.
Oh, yeah,
Samuel. No, this is
Samuel.
1 Samuel 16:7. And it says, you want me to read it?
Read that.
It says, but Yahuwah said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. Some verses say rejected him. For Yahuwah does not see as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but Yahuwah looks at the heart.
This is what we're saying, family.
Now, what was the...
Because somebody has on this, they holy. Y'all say, I don't look at this.
I'm going to look at your heart.
You could be a prostitute with this on. That don't mean nothing.
Or you can be a witch.
We saw the examples.
We seen it. A Satan.
Right.
Into Hinduism.
Right.
Because
witchcraft,
they do it
practicing
too.
all kind of witchcraft.
Right. And I want to say this too, because I didn't even mention that, because I'm talking about it. Witches, when they wear head coverings, the reason why they wear it is to honor their ancestors and to connect with their energies. This is why they do it.
Wow. So they're using that to channel energy.
To channel energy and connect with ancestors. You know how they have the ancestral worship.
Let's look at what I want to look at. Again, let's talk about this, family. We're about to wrap up. And listen, we're not saying, we did this study, family. Sister Abby, I wear her head coverings all the time. We are not knocking anybody.
Just on here.
Yes.
I go out and I wear head coverings. So I think it's beautiful. We want to make that clear.
We are not knocking that. We definitely want to establish that.
Right. I think head coverings are beautiful. But our thing is, we want you all to focus on the heart, because that's what Yahushua wanted, and that's what Yahuwah wanted from the very beginning. That's what Apostle Paul wanted too. But just like they had to do for the Israelites, they had to use something physical for them to get it, because they wasn't allowing that heart to be perfected. And so this is what Apostle Paul did. He said, well, I'm going to use something physical so they could understand it better.
So they could see the authority.
They could see the authority.
Yes.
But the authority is spiritual.
It's spiritual.
It is a spiritual authority. This is why it talks about Mashiach having Yahuwah as his head, the man having Yahushua as his head.
I'm going to put a graphic up where y'all can look at it. I mean, that's a perfect graphic when it says, remember the one with the umbrella?
Right.
Yep, I want y'all to see that, family, where it says, Yahuwah is the head of Mashiach. Mashiach is the head of the husband. The husband is the head of his wife. And if you single, it's the same thing. Still have to have you still have to have a man over authority. Because we talked about this a while back when we talked about the daughters of Yah. How if they weren't married yet, they was under the authority of their fathers. Some kind of male. Some kind of male was an authority over them. So it's the same thing, family.
And we have to say that because we've seen it before too with being out of order. And we've also seen many of our sisters who know, they understand, and they are in the order. But just because a person is single don't mean that, because I've seen this before too. I don't have a husband, so I don't have to submit to no man. That's not scripture.
And that's what the world promotes.
That's what the world promotes. Exactly. That's like the feminist movement, right? So we always we have to remain humble, and respect our brethren in this walk. Now, I'm not saying if they're trying to get you to sin and do some crazy mess. Nah, that's different.
Right.
You know, if you're getting convicted and they're trying to get you to sin, then you gotta, you gotta do, you don't stay under that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about that. But just knowing that we gotta respect our brethren, because they the one are supposed to have authority. Right? And for the woman, it talks about, we said it already, we submit to our husbands. I'm saying when we are married, and if not, you still have a cover. You still, you're covering, but I'm saying you still got a head, like some kind of brother and somebody who's looking out for you. Some male you can go to speak to, or who probably ministers the word to you, whatever. But we have to have order.
Absolutely.
Not let me teach you something, because we've seen that with women. Let me teach you.
Let me teach you.
I know better than you to our brothers. I'm like, whoa, no way.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Out of order.
Out of order. Out of, and that's what that's what Paul was trying to establish, family. He was establishing order throughout this whole thing. Let's read Ephesians 5:22 and through 24. It says, "Wives, submit to your own husbands as to Yahuwah, as to Mashiach. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Mashiach is the head of the assembly, his body, and is himself its savior. Now as the assembly submits to Mashiach, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands." Again, family, this is what Paul is establishing. Order, setting the order. It's not the feminist movement.
Right.
It is not the feminist movement. So let's cement the point that Paul was talking to just that assembly in Corinth, because people take one line and they make it a doctrine for all time, for all years, forever.
Right. This means like this thing for everything.
This is for everything, for everywhere. Well, let's see what they said in 1 Timothy verse 9. 1 Timothy chapter 2 verse 9. 1 Timothy 2 verse 9. You want to read that?
It says, "In like manner also, that the women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with propriety and moderation, not with braided hair, or gold, or pearls, or costly clothing, but which is proper for women professing," it has godliness, but set apartness, "with good works."
Verse 11 says, "Let a woman learn in silence with all submission." Again, it must have been chaos. This chaos was still going on.
Right.
In this other assembly, said, "Now let a woman learn in silence with all submission. And I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man, but to be in silence."
It sounds like respect to me.
Yeah, it sounds like order. Sounds like order. So if he's establishing order, there must have been disorder.
Right. Correct.
And let me say this too, right? We did another lesson too about this when we're talking about order. Remember we talked about order in the assembly? Because dealing with women teaching and speaking. A lot of people have questions about that. Go check out that lesson, family, where we broke all of that down. Can a woman teach? Can a woman speak in the assembly?
Right.
Go check that out.
Right. And I want to mention too, we did that before. I don't remember which. That might have been in that one. I don't remember. But we have so many messages that we put together in the past. But one of them, we were talking about the women of Israel in the Old Covenant Scriptures. That's when it came to the jury.
Right.
Remember where we talked about jury and how they wore jury, right? But here, what did Paul say? He said, "Don't come over here with all of that." Because they have different classes of people here, and we are all one. And we're not going to make no distinctions. And we're not going to show like we better than you and that anybody is better than anybody. We are all equal here. So we're going to do this thing right. Braided hair.
I thought the head was supposed to be covered.
He said not with braided hair, right? So if it's not braided, that must mean if he's saying not with braided hair, so that means they was going in there with their hair braided. So, that would be considered something fancy.
Right.
When you would braid your hair in different kind of styles, it would be considered a fancy look.
Right.
So again, don't come up and hear all of that, drawing all kind of attention to yourself. Tone it down.
Yes.
So if he's saying not with braided hair, that must mean that there was a modest way, a different type of way to wear your hair. So they was obviously wearing their hair out here.
Yes.
And here he wasn't instructing on the head coverings because some women were wearing their hair braided.
And matter of fact, why did he tell them cover your head? Just like I told him in Corinth, cover your head.
Right.
He didn't tell them that.
Right. I don't want to see those braids. You need to cover it all up.
He didn't say that.
He didn't say that. He
said y'all dress modestly.
Dress modestly.
Not to make your poor brother feel bad because they was doing, like you said, coming in that all fancy, expensive stuff on.
Right. Right. And it said moderation. So it's saying, I don't want you coming with all of that stuff. Tone it down. Right. No extraness. That's going to bring too much attention to you when the attention should be on the message.
Exactly. What's being taught.
What's being taught. Don't come in here with all of that.
First Peter 3 said the same thing. 1 Peter verse 1. You want to read that?
1 Peter 3 verse 1. It says, wives likewise be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, they without a word may be won by the conduct of their wives, when they observe your chaste conduct accompanied by fear. Do not let your adornment be merely outward, arranging the hair. Wow.
Says, do not let your adornment be merely outward. So don't just look good all on the outside.
Right. Arranging the hair. Well, he just talked about the braided hair, right? Wearing gold. Well, he just talked about all that jewelry. Or putting on fine apparel. He said be modest. He said moderation. Rather, let it be the hidden person of the heart. Whoa.
Goes back to that heart, family. Goes back to that heart.
The hidden person of the heart with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. Sounds like a humble person. Which is very precious in the sight of Yah. Oh my goodness. What? For in this manner, in former times,
listen to this, family,
the set apart women who trusted in Yahuwah also adorned themselves, being submissive to their own husbands. But you all, whether you are married or not, let's say you're not married, this also applies to my sisters who are not married. This still applies. It's an order for everything.
It's order. It's saying respect. It's still, you don't have to be married to have a kind spirit.
Right.
You don't have to be married to be gentle.
Right. To respect your brethren.
Exactly.
And of course, we know too, no brethren should be being authoritarian.
Right. Being harsh to his
sisters. We know that, and we want to say that. But it's just having that mutual love and respect for one another.
Absolutely. And like we said, family, we are definitely not knocking anybody who want to wear head coverings. Because I've seen comments where people say, you know what, I've gotten revelations. My prayers got answers when I start covering my head. I feel better when I cover my head. When I go out into the public, I get more respect. I saw stuff like that.
Right.
So
some people find without doing it because Sister Abby, I was going to be honest with you all. I said it earlier, I don't always wear head coverings. I do not. Because it's a hard thing. But one thing I understand is having respect for my husband. Whether it be in the house or outside the house. Right? So it's a matter of the heart, you all. It starts in the heart.
Absolutely. You have that scripture here? You want to share?
Yep. And I'm going to share this scripture, which is kind of like going to wrap things up.
Family, I hope this lesson was edifying to you all, family. This was Sister Abby and I, we learned a lot during the study. Putting it all together for you all, family, to come here and edify our brothers and sisters.
Yes.
It's always going to be about that heart, family, at the end of the day.
Yes.
Yah never wants us to put trust in these physical things, family. He always wants our heart, family.
Absolutely.
Don't let this be the marker to say, if this person don't have this, that person, they're not righteous.
Mm-hmm.
They're not walking upright because they don't have this on.
Right.
You're going to miss the message because you're looking for that outward. You're looking at the outward appearance, family.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'm going to read in Romans 14:22. And I'm going to read the Amplified version, y'all. And it says, the faith which you have that gives you freedom of choice. Freedom of choice. Apostle Paul was saying that,
Paul
right?
telling them. He said, decide for yourselves. Judge for yourselves.
The faith which you have that gives you freedom of choice. Have as your own conviction before Elohim. Just keep it between yourself and Elohim. Don't go around pointing the finger. Why you don't have a head covering? You should have a head covering. Why, brother? Why your head not covered? Or whatever the situation is.
Some people do that.
Why is your head covered? I mean,
yep.
You know, but it says the faith. Wait, it says have as your own conviction before Elohim. Just keep it between yourself and Elohim, seeking His will. Happy is he who has no reason to condemn himself for what he approves. For what he approves. What's that scripture? Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. This is your walk.
Yes.
We are free in Mashiach Yahushua. Yah wants our hearts, you all.
Guess what? Sister Abiyah not going to stand in place of me on Judgment Day. I'm not going to stand in her place. We definitely not going to stand in your place.
Right.
That's why we say, go to Yah.
Yes.
Let Him lead you and guide you in what you should do.
Yes.
The Ruach is going to convict you. Should I do this? Should I do that?
Right.
Yah's going to tell you.
And if you are convicted, then follow your convictions. We tell everybody that if you're ever convicted about anything, follow your convictions. And remember this thing. Head coverings, the thing that what was going on in Apostle Paul when it was talking about the women wearing the head coverings. You all, this was not an instruction in Torah.
We can't find out one
We look
law.
high and low.
We didn't see it. Unless y'all can put it in the chat.
It's
Drop it in the
not an
comments.
instruction. Right. We missed
it, right?
But
we missed it.
It's not law.
And you know what I find funny about that too? Just wrapping this up. A lot of people, they don't like Paul's writings. They don't like what he said. They don't even believe in Yahushua. None of that. But you're going to hold on to this part what Paul said. Women, be silent in the church. Women, cover your head.
Cover your head.
But you don't believe Paul.
You don't believe Paul? You talk against Paul.
You talk against Paul all the time. But you're going to hold on to that part.
Whenever
you like that part.
Right. Only the things that suit you, your flesh.
Think about that, family.
This was not a law, you all. And so if we condemning our brothers and sisters for something that's not a law because we are personally convicted, then we're no longer walking in love.
Absolutely.
That's not the fruits of the Spirit.
Not at all. So that was our lesson, family. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all again for joining us. Thank our moderators for dropping those scriptures in the chat, family. Thank you all for your participation. We definitely, Sister Abiyah and I, we enjoyed it. Thank you all who have blessed us. May Yah continue to bless you and your family. Yes, absolutely. So, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day, family. And we will talk to you all, if not during the week, next week, family. All right?
And a little bit in the chats.
Right. Yeah, we're going to chat with you all after this, family.
Love you all.
All right, family. Love you all. Talk with you soon.